why it's different to do diplomacy in peace times and in war times. And you made a very compelling argument that there is no room for Plan B.
The problem with Plan B, with having a Plan B in wartime diplomacy, is that you will inevitably end up with Plan B.
Culture does play a role in diplomacy.
Culture is at the bottom of everything. It all starts with culture. Diplomacy is no different from human life.
Dmytro Kuleba is a Ukrainian statesman, diplomat, and former Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, recognized as one of the most influential diplomats of his generation. He previously served as Deputy Prime Minister for European and Euro-Atlantic Integration, Permanent Representative of Ukraine to the Council of Europe, and Special Envoy for Strategic Communications. A career diplomat and legal scholar, he holds a PhD in international law and has long been a key advocate for Ukraine's European and Euro-Atlantic integration. In December 2024, the Belfer Center for Science and International Affairs at Harvard Kennedy School appointed him a non-resident senior fellow, highlighting his global leadership in defending democracy, freedom, and resilience. Since January 2025, Kuleba has also served as an associate professor at the Institut d'études politiques, Sciences Po, in France, where he teaches his original course, War Diplomacy.
Hello, I'm Natalka Cmoc. You're watching Off the Record. Today is November 24th. I am here with Dmytro Kuleba, who was Ukraine's foreign minister from 2020 to 2024, and also an author of very influential books. And I will read them. One is The War for Reality: How to Win the War How to Win in a World of Fakes, Truths and Communities. 2, War and New Horizons: Opinion Leaders on the Present and Future of Ukraine and the World, which is a compilation of important essays from various voices around the world. And the third one that is coming out, correct, is Diplomatic Cuisine: Behind the Scenes of World Politics. Thank you very much, Dmytro, for finding time to speak with me today.
I couldn't say no to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And today it's an exciting time to be speaking as well, because as always, there's so much going on in Ukraine. I don't know where you would like to start, but I hear some of the things I was hoping to hear from you. So one is, you were foreign minister in a really challenging time in Ukraine from 2020 to 24. You are known because you actually did quite a lot for Ukraine in that role, really bringing much more attention to the issue, really bringing various allies together, really making a difference in terms of securing weapons for Ukraine at that time. And I thought that would be a really good place to start, if you agree.
Sure, I'm all yours.
Okay. So I would like to frame it in something that I read that you said, and it actually had a very profound effect on me. You wrote about why it's different to do diplomacy in peace times and in war times. And you made a very compelling argument that there is no room for Plan B. Could you please maybe describe what you meant by that, and some of your lessons from the time of leading the foreign ministry during those initial years of the full-scale invasion?
Yeah, I teach a course at Sciences Po in Paris, which is called Principles of Wartime Diplomacy, and there is a whole separate lecture, separate class dedicated to Plan B. Plan B is one of the most exciting classes because it causes a lot of controversy and discussions among students, but also when I talk about it with other professors and people who know foreign policy, or who used to do, or who are doing foreign policy, this is the most, I would say, complicated and challenging topics to discuss. Why? Because having plans B, C, D, E, and F is in diplomats' DNA. I mean, that's what we are trained for, right? We are trained to speak the language where in one sentence we imply 2 or 3 plans, because we don't know how the situation is going to evolve.
Kind of like scenario plan.
Yeah, exactly. That's just scenarios. That's why because diplomats are trained to leave as much room for maneuver for their nation as possible. But war is a different state of mind. War is the ultimate form of conflict. So the stakes are the highest, responsibilities are unprecedented. So the problem with Plan B, with having a Plan B in wartime diplomacy, is that you will inevitably end up with Plan B if you even mention that you have it.
You made a very compelling case for that.
Yeah, and actually, it was a story of a Ukrainian army officer who helped me frame this concept, because this is what I was experiencing in practice. But then I heard a story when in 2022, an officer was commanding a small unit. And the task of that unit was to take a breach under control. So and the Russians were defending that breach vehemently. And the commander followed the usual rules. He would bring his people together and he say, okay, this is our plan A, we have to take that breach. But he would say, if the resistance is too fierce, if we if we fall behind our scheduled actions, then our plan B is to retreat, to assemble here, and to recharge. And he noticed that he was ending up with plan B.
Yes.
So there are tasks in life, there are missions in life when you just cannot afford having plan B. And it does not apply to every war, because wars are very different. But now, air raid siren for those who are still not used to this sound. But in the case of Russia's war against Ukraine, when the conflict is existential, when the strengths of armies are uncomparable in terms of objective data, having no plan B is the best way, not the perfect way, but the best way for you to try to defend yourself and to survive in this struggle. So, and everything you've seen so far in Ukrainian diplomacy, if you really put every element and everything that happened on the shelves in a very structured order, you'll see that Ukraine never communicated any types of plan B to neither to its partners, which is also very important.
Yes.
Because when you fight for weapons, for example, you cannot say, we need artillery, but if you cannot give us artillery, then maybe you can give us that. You just don't do that. You keep pushing on artillery. NATO membership, EU membership, you do not say, well, if you cannot give us full membership, then maybe you could come up with something that looks similar to membership.
Yes.
Neither can you do it with your enemy, because your enemy will immediately exploit your weakness. It will take plan B as a sign of weakness. So it's not a perfect thing, but it's the most viable strategy, at least in our experience.
And when you're looking at sort of the peace plan conversations that are taking place in Geneva, do you see that plan A, plan B taking place right now, or what are your thoughts on this in that frame?
Well, to start with, I think it will be fair to say that what we've seen over the last maybe 3 or 4 days is the first real negotiation since the arrival of President Trump to the White House, or re-arrival. There is a lot of news. There is like a flow of news. There has been flow of news over the last 10 or 11 months. Everyone was talking, messaging was going back and forth, but these were not talks. This was setting the stage. Now, what we've seen recently is a real attempt, but I cannot call it Plan B, because it was not something that Ukraine was. It was not a card Ukraine was holding in its pocket as Plan B. It's a reality on the ground and in politics that created a situation where Ukraine considers these negotiations as their Plan A. and we can find it some can find it very unfortunate. Others would say it's time to stop anyway. So let's move on with this. But this has never been considered as a hidden card in the pocket in Kiev.
So overall, just to make sure I understand you correctly, this is now the real negotiation. Ukraine is putting its best foot forward to be able to enter that negotiation. And do you feel the support from the European members and Canada and elsewhere? Because I think it's critical as well to have that perspective.
Yeah, I guess everyone is supportive. The question is different, though, in my view. The question is, how did we end up here? How did we reach the point where making such painful concessions became Plan B? Plan B, and then we can start asking questions to ourselves, to our European partners, to our Canadian friends, to anyone else in the world. Like, why didn't we approach this moment in a much stronger position? Why Europe failed to be more efficient in rolling out its rearm program? Why the issue of frozen assets, Russian frozen assets in Europe hasn't been resolved yet? I don't know why Canada hasn't done something more than it did. And don't get me wrong, I appreciate everything that has been done for Ukraine, and the effort has been remarkable. This is not me saying that no one did anything to help Ukraine. No, not at all. But history is ruthless, and we are not judged by what we did. We are judged by whether our deeds were sufficient to gain our objectives. And fighting a war like the one we are in the middle of, having Russia as the enemy, I can say that enormous effort was done, but it was still not enough.
You wrote your first book focused on the information warfare. And those 5 points that you listed, do you feel they still apply? Or do you feel that in that information war space, is it changing, or is it essentially the same?
No, they're absolutely the same. I am regularly being asked whether there will be War for Reality 2, and I routinely reply that there will be none. And the reason is very simple. I can add up more cases to this book. I can expand chapters, but they will just reaffirm what is already written in it. And the reason why these rules remain the same is because they are rooted in our brains.
Could you maybe describe for the listeners what they are?
So I haven't looked up the book for since it was published.
Just in general, your principles.
So
that you've listed.
There are 5 rules in it. The first one is think critically. The second one is manage your emotions. The third one is understand your community. The fourth one is work with the state, or engage with your state, because it requires collective effort. And there is a fifth one that escapes my mind, but there is one more. But the only thing that I would change in that book, I would swap the first 2 rules. When I was writing the book in 2018, I held the view that teaching people to think critically is a starting point for everything. But as we've lived through these years and we've seen the real effect of social media and how politics is being done these days, I realized that rule number 1 is actually manage your emotions. Because if you fail to manage your instinctive emotions, then it doesn't really make sense whether you are able or you're not able to think critically. What happens with us today is we react instantly in an emotional way to what we see on our screens. In the old days, it would be to see a reaction to what we see on the TV or read in the paper or hear from a neighbor. Today, we are all on various social media, podcasts. We listen to different people. And the pace of life has become so fast because we live under permanent pressure of information flow. The problem is that over the last 5,000 of years, our brains have remained more or less the same. But these same brains have to handle an incomparably higher, bigger volume of information. Mm-hmm. And we're just not up to the challenge as human beings. So the first thing you have to do is to learn how not to instantly react to what you see or read or hear, either by becoming becoming euphoric or by feeling devastated. Depends on the news that you read, and this is where most of us fail, because, as I said, the environment in which we exist, it forces us to push the button in less than a second after consuming information, and that's it. We create a perception for ourselves.
Yes.
And then the confirmation bias, the famous rule of a confirmation bias, comes in, because everything we do afterwards is our brain is trying to reinforce what we already believe is the right thing, and this is how we make mistakes, and this is how we shrink our possibility to think critically.
So one of the topics on the show is how diplomacy is adjusting to this new world. And before we started recording, I jokingly, but not jokingly, said that I now have to write reports on the phone because I need to send it out immediately, while we used to have the time that we would go to the office, write it up, get others to review it, and then send it. And we no longer all the time have this luxury to be able to do that, because everyone is hungry for immediate information, and we're almost competing with the news. The news can often get ahead of us before we have that diplomatic reflection, which I think is more without emotion. It is more controlled. It is more thoughtful and analytical, but time is not always our friend in that respect. So as foreign minister, and you were, what I didn't mention is another whole area that you had built while you were foreign minister was the reach of Ukraine diplomatic missions in the world. Is in part the reason why you wanted to increase the diplomatic footprint was to be able to have that information quicker, or was it more to influence others? But I would love to know your thoughts, because I know I've said a lot here, but feel free to pick up any one of those themes, because we're here just to hear what your thoughts were from that perspective when you were foreign minister.
Well, to your viewers, here is Natalka, the Canadian ambassador, doing the podcast. You are the manifestation of the changes taking place in diplomacy. I mean, imagining an ambassador doing a podcast 10 years ago,
never would have happened.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it would have been subjected to internal review procedures at the ministry, whether you uphold the highest standard of being a diplomat by engaging in such activity. In 2014, I was invited to return to the foreign ministry to build the strategic communications for Ukraine against the background of the Russian aggression against Ukraine. And these people knew me. I mean, everyone in the ministry knew me because I was flesh and blood of Ukrainian diplomacy. And I was doing a briefing for them about what we were gonna do. And everyone was in agreement with everything I was telling them, until the moment I said, from now on, the new rule is simple. If you did something, but you didn't tell about it, it's not considered to be done. This is where especially senior diplomats rebelled against me. And I heard a lot of criticism. We are diplomats. We are not here to show off. We are to do our quiet jobs. And in 2 years' time, they were all posting on Twitter, now X. They were all routinely checking their pages on the pages of their missions on Facebook and other social media to make sure that they were regularly updated. Life forced them to learn the new rule, the rule that diplomatic instinct was rejecting instantly. And this is the biggest change. Foreign ministries today produce no less content than media organizations. Everyone is after content. Everyone is playing with content. And the reason is very simple. There is a whole new generation of voters and citizens who live in a world of infotainment. Mm-hmm. And if diplomacy does not pick up with this trend, if diplomacy does not turn its face to infotainment, it becomes irrelevant to these people. So if you're a politician running a foreign ministry, you will find it very hard to get re-elected or to strengthen your positions within the party or the government if you do not produce content. If you are an institution, people will simply turn their backs to you and they will look for information about you somewhere elsewhere. So the biggest change that occurred in diplomacy came from the need to adjust to the new reality that human beings exist in. Look, who is winning elections, or who is doing well in politics these days? These are the people who are on TikTok, on Instagram, who are not afraid of being themselves. And this is the biggest fear of any diplomat, right? Because we were trained not to be ourselves, but to be a packed, buttoned up persons with serious faces. Now everyone is smiling. Some are doing directly entertaining things. We need to get closer to the people to remain relevant. This is the first challenge. The second is, of course, and you referred to it already. I remember very well conversations and discussions in the Ukrainian foreign ministry like 15 years ago, whether we are, what makes us different from news agencies. And the answer was analysis. We don't have to be faster than the news agencies. We have to be deeper and smarter than the news agency. We have to give more context. Now try to put all the context and analysis in a WhatsApp message. That just doesn't work.
Yeah,
but your bosses, but your bosses, that's exactly what they expect from you. They want nothing longer than a WhatsApp message with both the news, the context, and analysis in it. So in that sense, our job has gotten much harder. But whether we like it or not, but diplomats do drift more and more towards the news agency style, and that's again the pressure of the media that is on us. And finally, I believe that diplomacy. There is one more thing that changed diplomacy. There are no more secrets. I mean, every secret conversation.
Or at least it's hard to keep a secret.
It's like almost impossible to keep them. Everyone knows everything. Every time I'm speaking in a room based on Chatham rules,
someone's recording you.
I say, guys, I mean, with all my respect, you don't have to remind us about Chatham rules because in the end, it will be on the social media one way or another. So, which makes diplomats work much harder. But again, that's a reality. It's almost impossible to conceal anything in the world of social media, because everything shared between the two becomes available to someone third.
Yes, but I want to go back to a question that, because I think you had an influence there. So going back to diplomacy, I think that 10 years ago, there were rumors, at least on the Canadian side, that do we really, in debate, how many diplomats do we really need overseas? Do they really need to be there? Now that information is accessible very quickly, what is the advantage of the human presence? And there was a lot of debate about maybe we don't need that many missions. And some countries reacted to that. I know that Canada was considering it as well. So on the other hand, now, because things are so quickly, it almost had the opposite effect. Because things are so quickly, it's good to have your person as close to the action as possible. And you had that instinct. You purposefully wanted to have more missions out representing Ukraine. Largely, maybe, I imagine countering the Russian narrative would be part of it as well, so Ukraine could speak on its own behalf. Do you feel that, do you still feel that, well, first of all, can you confirm that that is in fact what your mission was and your belief at that time? And do you still think that having that human presence is as critical as you might have in the past?
Let me approach it from what may seem an unconventional perspective. Since the invasion started, millions of Ukrainians experienced distant relationships. Some sent their families abroad. Other families were separated because a man or a woman is serving in the army, and the other couple is living somewhere in Ukraine. And as the war dragged on for years, millions of people realized that distant relationships do not really work. And we see this spike in divorces and family crisis. Diplomacy is no different from human life. Distant relationships do not work. And for diplomacy to and distant relationship in diplomacy is when you do not have anyone on the ground while pretending that you can still maintain a relationship with that country.
That's a great answer.
Yeah, so that's just how it works. But I see the point you're making, and the colleagues, your colleagues are making, and I will say this: it is not the retreat from the places across the globe that helps you to optimize your diplomacy and make it efficient. It's the change of the way we do diplomacy that can make it more efficient. And in that sense, I find AI as one of the solutions. You see, diplomats look at what a diplomat does most of the time. It's writing.
Or relationship building is how I would describe it.
Writing, writing and bureaucracy consumes your time and leaves no space for maintaining and developing relationships. So if we find a way, and this is what we were trying to do at the Foreign Ministry, and this is the only thing that I really regret I was not able to conclude during my tenure as a minister. But if you introduce elements, if you introduce technology into the work of diplomacy that will relieve a diplomat from the duty to endlessly take notes and draft cables, you will free up time for that diplomat to build and develop personal relationships. So actually, we need to develop diplomacy in a way where diplomats will have more time to have coffees, lunches, dinners, and casual conversations with other parts, because this is what we are losing. We are losing time for person-to-person contacts, which is the only way to really build a relationship.
Yes, AI cannot replace that.
And AI should free us up from the routine bureaucratic work that consumes all of our time taking away the possibility to actually develop these relationships. So this is how I see the role of AI in diplomacy. And in the end, we have to aim at giving more room to our staff and to diplomats to talk to their counterparts in person.
I am a strong believer of that. I feel like I almost fed that question to hear that answer because I strongly believe that. But our centers are hungry for information, hungry for analysis that could really drive things. But if you don't have people going out, if you have the entire embassy team sitting in the embassy and not meeting people, then it doesn't make sense why we're here. So, but then it takes me to another point, something else that I know that you've been pushing and believe that has an important role in diplomacy, and that's culture. Mm-hmm. So again, there is a tendency to not see culture as important or as important. And why should diplomats worry about culture, especially in the context of war? So when there's a war, that's what we should cut out, and that we need to support more the country to fight, for example, in Ukraine. But culture does play a role in diplomacy. So you're writing a book on diplomacy and cooking, and the French have always believed that good dinners are very important for relationship building trust, and so on. Not that I want to reduce culture to a dinner, but I think culture does play a very important role, and it's proven to be very important here. Do you want to comment on your views on cultural diplomacy?
Yeah. So first, the book that you're referring to has already been published. You can buy it. It's in Ukrainian, so I'm sure you will be able...
I will go and read it.
You will be able to read it.
It's with chefs, correct? Is it just one chef?
Yes. Or no, it's one chef whom I invited to be my co-author.
Wonderful.
Because the book is structured as a full-course diplomatic dinner.
Yes.
And you and I know that this... You can rarely bump into a full course diplomatic dinner, right? Everything has been democratized, including the dinners. But it's a full course diplomatic dinner that's where I tell a story about what has been happening over the last years to every drink, beverage, or dish that we are having. Let me tell you just a small story to answer your question. Like 2 months ago, I had a meeting with one very famous European intellectual. He is influential. He holds very liberal views. So you can easily paint yourself a portrait of that man. And he's like 200% Ukrainian, pro-Ukrainian. He was complaining on the failures of European elites to help Ukraine. He was very critical of the United States. There is like zero reason to believe that he has any second agenda when it comes to Ukraine. Very honest and decent man. And in the end of that conversation, all of a sudden he asks me, but Dmytro, just one thing I wanted to clarify with you. Is it true that you do not, in Ukraine, you do not publish and allow import of books of Russian classical authors like Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, and others? And I said, yeah, that's true. And he got very agitated because of that. He said, "No, you cannot do that because you cancel you cancel your own strengths by doing that. You have to be open. You have to show that you are stronger. That you're better than this. You cannot be like the Russians who ban books." And I said, "Sorry, I disagree. We can, because our identity had been suppressed and erased and cancelled for centuries, and now we have to defend it. We cannot defend it in an open market with Russia." But it's remarkable, isn't it, that a man holding 200% pro-Ukrainian political views so vehemently defending cultural advances of Russia. So this I guess it answers your question. Culture is at the bottom of everything. It all starts with culture. And whether it's Russian literature, Russian ballet, or Russian poetry, but it just sticks nations together.
Yeah, I think there's there's a lot of debate about this, right? Whether culture canceling culture versus promoting of, and I guess there's space for both. You can at the same time create opportunities for Ukrainian authors, Ukrainian history, Ukrainian ballet, Ukrainian opera, and you've seen that. You've seen that. Countries who have never really knew any about Ukrainian authors or artists are now seeing it. Their whole exhibits in a time of war, art exhibits are traveling around the world, and because there is a reason for it. It's in part canceling the narrative that Russia has been very successfully promoting. So, yes, I think it makes sense.
There is no perfect answer to this question, but I think what many people abroad miss about Ukraine's insistence on canceling Russian culture is that for us, it's and I know this is a clickbait headline, but for Ukrainians, this culture is politically equal to, let's say, Nazi culture. And you in the West, you do not exhibit Nazi art. You do not praise Nazi art for the sake of the quality of that art. You cannot remove the context from the art.
Or on the other hand, the fact that successful Ukrainian artists, writers, were physically canceled in that they were killed or sent,
including our language.
I remember just coming to see an exhibit about Alla Horska, for example.
Yeah.
I didn't even know she existed. And many Ukrainians said the same thing because she was physically canceled.
Yeah.
So I think it's about creating space for past geniuses and people have contributed to Ukraine's cultural mentality, but it's also creating space for current artists who are creating amazing things these days. I mean, it's amazing. Andrei Kurkov spoke to all of the literature and poetry that's being written on the front describing the situation. So in short, you think diplomacy has a role in promoting culture?
It's one of the core roles of diplomacy, of course. Also because it's actually sometimes easier to enter a country or to do something in a country on the cultural front because the other side feels more forthcoming to doing something culturally and not politically. Mm-hmm. So this is why I'm saying that culture is the very foundations of diplomacy. You have to start with culture, with paintings, with movies, with music, with food. This is your entry ticket.
And it connects people.
Absolutely.
People can safely talk about dance or art without.
Yeah, they feel exactly. Yeah, you're right.
And it opens up the floor.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else you would like to discuss today before we end our podcast?
No. I really appreciate the conversation. I hope that viewers will not find some of its parts boring when we talk about how diplomacy is changing, because I guess your audience is much wider than diplomats. But I'm happy you are doing this project, because this is one of the ways to keep diplomacy relevant to the wider audiences. Before 2014, for example, in Ukraine, people could hardly explain why they needed foreign office. And it was only the war that explained to them why diplomats are as important as soldiers. So I hope that your viewers across the globe will appreciate the work you are doing and the work diplomats are doing, because it's absolutely indispensable.
Well, thank you, Dmytro, for joining the show today. We will list the books so that people can buy them because I think they're very good. I've read the first two, but I'll now go by the third one.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for coming to the show. I've been speaking with Dmytro Kuleba. I'm Natalka Cmoc, and you've been listening to Off the Record. Thank you.
Thank you.